Have you ever noticed that the closer we get to the pyramids, the stranger they become? We stand before structures built more than 4,500 years ago, older than every empire, every religion, every library we've ever known. And yet, the deeper we dig into their origins, the more the mystery seems to grow. Because here's the unsettling truth. We know when the pyramids were built. We know where. We even know the names of the pharaohs buried inside. But we still cannot fully answer the most important question of all. Who built them, truly? Not the names carved on the walls, not the kings who claimed ownership, but the people, the minds, the civilization capable of shaping millions of stone blocks into a geometric perfection that seems almost impossible even today. And when you start following the trail of evidence, archaeological, astronomical, cultural, you begin to notice something strange. There is a missing link in the story of the pyramids. Something Egyptologists acknowledge but rarely emphasize. Something that forces us to rethink who the ancient Egyptians really were. And that missing link may change the entire way we understand the birth of civilization itself. To understand the pyramids, we must first understand the world in which they were born. The world before the pyramids. We often imagine ancient Egypt as one unified, timeless civilization, a golden kingdom stretching from the Old Kingdom to Cleopatra. But that is an illusion. The Egypt that built the Great Pyramid was not the same Egypt of later pharaohs. It was younger, rawer, more ambitious, and in some ways, more mysterious. Around 3100 BCE, long before the pyramids rose, Egypt unified under the first pharaohs of the early dynastic period. The Nile became the backbone of a state unlike anything on earth. A land where the river's floods gave predictable life, where the desert sealed borders, and where religion and kingship merged into one. This environment did something extraordinary. It created the first large-scale, centralized, stable civilization capable of planning decades ahead. The pyramids weren't just monuments. They were the visible proof that humanity had entered a new era, the era of organized complexity. But here's the strange part. This sudden leap, from mud brick tombs to the mathematical perfection of the Great Pyramid, doesn't follow a smooth line. Something changed, something accelerated, something or someone introduced new knowledge, new coordination, and new engineering power in a very short time, and that is the mystery scholars still struggle with today. The impossible leap. Before the pyramids, Egyptian tombs were simple mastabas, flat-roofed rectangular buildings. Then came King Djoser and his architect, Imhotep, who stacked mastabas on top of each other to create the step pyramid at Saqqara. This was revolutionary, but it still doesn't prepare us for what happens next. In less than 80 years, the Egyptians went from small stone structures to a stepped prototype to a failed attempt at a true pyramid to the Great Pyramid of Giza, a geometric masterpiece aligned to true north with mind-bending precision. Imagine going from building a wooden hut to constructing a skyscraper in 3 generations. Even the ancient Egyptians knew this leap was extraordinary. They mythologized the early pyramid builders. They elevated them to near-divine status. And modern archaeology agrees. Engineering knowledge that should have taken centuries evolved in a single lifetime. How? Was it an explosion of innovation, a unique concentration of talent, a political order so unified it could mobilize a nation? Perhaps. But there's a deeper mystery. Where did the knowledge come from? Because the Egyptians did not simply build large structures, they built mathematically elegant structures. The Great Pyramid incorporates a near-perfect 51.84 degree slope, cardinal alignment within 1/15 of a degree ratios corresponding to P and the golden ratio, whether intentional or emergent. A base error of less than a few inches across 13 acres, chambers positioned through incredibly precise internal geometry. And here is where the missing link becomes hard to ignore. The architectural genius required didn't appear suddenly in other Egyptian fields. There were no equally advanced bridges, palaces, or cities. The peak of engineering is concentrated in a single project: royal tombs. Why? What did they know that we don't? The people who built Giza. One of the biggest misconceptions is that the pyramids were built by slaves. But archaeological evidence shows the opposite. The workers were skilled artisans, seasonal farmers, permanent crews housed in organized villages, well-fed, well-treated, and paid in grain, beer, and bread. These weren't slaves, they were citizens of a national project. But the real surprise is the size and coordination of the workforce. The Great Pyramid required 20,000, 30,000 workers over 2 million blocks. A logistics system capable of feeding and organizing a small city. Quarrying, transporting, cutting, lifting, and aligning stones with near-machine precision. Egypt's population in the Old Kingdom was relatively small. Yet somehow, they created the largest structure on Earth for over 4,000 years. This means Egypt wasn't just a kingdom. It was a civilizational machine, a system capable of channeling the labor, belief, and creativity of a whole people into one unified vision. But again, the question remains, where did that organizational intelligence come from? Because Egypt shows an early burst of complexity, followed by long periods of stagnation and even decline. It is as if they inherited a blueprint, used it, and then gradually lost it. And this brings us closer to the missing link. The missing link, the knowledge that disappeared. When we look at Egypt after the pyramids, something strange happens. Their engineering simplifies. Their ability to build at the scale of Khufu declines. Later pyramids crumble. Stonework becomes less precise. The civilization continues, but the peak is never reached again. This raises a haunting possibility. The knowledge system behind the Great Pyramid was fragile, maybe even unique to a generation of geniuses. And as those people died, their secrets died with them. Modern researchers point to clues. Quarry marks that show experimental techniques, sudden innovations in surveying tools, radical shifts in stone-cutting methods, abandoned projects that reveal trial-and-error alignment methods that remain debated even today. This wasn't magic. This wasn't aliens. This was human brilliance, compressed into a moment so rare that it feels almost supernatural. The missing link is not extraterrestrial. It is human potential, but human potential expressed under conditions that might never be repeated. So we are left with the question, who built the pyramids, truly? Was it the kings whose names are carved into history? The architects whose visions reshaped a civilization? The thousands of laborers who offered their hands and lives? The rare minds whose innovations elevated an entire society? Or a cultural moment? A unique merging of religion, power, and unity? Perhaps the true builders were not individuals at all, but a worldview. A belief that the king was the axis between heaven and earth. That death was not an ending, but a transformation. That the afterlife was real enough to justify decades of human effort. That stone itself could be shaped into eternity. Maybe the pyramids were built not just with tools and labor, but with a collective dream so powerful it reorganized an entire civilization. A dream we can barely comprehend today. When we stand at Giza, we are not just looking at a tomb. We are looking at a message from a world that saw time differently, a world that believed human life could touch the eternal, a world that poured everything, resources, genius, identity, into a single question. How do we make something that lasts forever? The irony is that the pyramids were meant to preserve a king, yet they ended up preserving something far greater, a reminder of what humanity is capable of when it is united by a single purpose. And perhaps that is the missing link we keep ignoring. The pyramids are not mysterious because they were impossible. They are mysterious because they were human. Human in ambition, human in genius, human in error, human in faith, human in the hunger to leave something behind. So the next time you think about the pyramids, ask yourself, what could we build today if we believed in something the way the ancient Egyptians did? And what grand visions of our own might the future discover? Still standing, still watching, long after we are gone. If you found this story fascinating, like, share, and subscribe to Timeless Questions channel, where we explore the civilizations, ideas, and mysteries that shaped humanity.